There is only one war that matters. The Great War. And it is here.
Hey everybody, this is going to be my finale Q&A. Just careful for spoilers if you haven't seen the episode yet. Still a whole lot of questions about Tyrion. I think that they've answered a couple of them. I tried to include that in this, but there will be a couple bonus videos after this week for the characters. But here we go. First one, Will asks, do you guys think that Jaime and Bran will get a reunion? Well, I think that they have to at this point. You had the Hound and Brienne. Jaime and Bran would be one of those really awkward moments. A lot of it just depends on where Jaime's headed first. Is he headed for Jon and Daenerys because they're headed for White Harbor, or is he headed straight to Winterfell? It makes sense that he try to meet with Team Daenerys first before anybody went to Winterfell, so eventually they'll all be there. And Bran isn't petty, so it'll be more awkward for Jaime than it will for Bran, but it'll just be a fun payoff just to bring it all the way back around from him pushing him out that window. Next one, Minnie asks, I thought the wall was protected by strong magic against the White Walkers, and technically the dragon is now a White Walker. It kind of doesn't make sense. So the thing with the wall is I think it's one of those things where they just fast forward over a plot and they don't explain the logic of it. Most likely scenario is that because Bran was marked, he broke the magic seal the way he broke the seal on the weirwood tree that allowed them to get in. But in addition to the seal being broken, the Night King needed something powerful enough to bring down a portion of the wall to bring the army through. It's so massive that they could probably take down the gate at Eastwatch. But what happens is they have a mechanism for caving in that tunnel, so there'd be no way to get through for the Army of the Dead because they couldn't go around. Because like they said in the episode when Euron's like, can they swim? No, they can't swim. So I think just in service of moving things along as quickly as possible, they chose not to over-explain the logic of how the seal was broken. Next one, big Tyrion question. Manu asks, why was Tyrion watching them have sex? I don't get why he was just waiting there. Well, so in the behind the scenes, Tyrion actually says that it won't end well for everyone, and he's really worried about that. That's kind of been my takeaway, is that he's just really worried it's going to blow up in their face.
It's dangerous for everybody involved. I'm sure it's good for both of them in the moment, but you don't even get the relief of how beautiful it could be or should be. It's not good. But it should be, but it's not. It's Game of Thrones. There's a long history of romance not ending well on this show.
Watching the cast react to that is kind of funny, but it's interesting to see how the characters will react to that. Next question, Chris asks, what happened to Tormund and Beric? So there are really two likely scenarios, and in both of them, they get away. The first scenario is they just got down the wall before it actually came down, and they made it into the bay, or they just made it away. The second scenario is that they ran the other way along the wall to the next castle, and then made it down. So either way, they're going to be fine. But what they might do is they might have just gone back to Castle Black to tell Ed and all the other people, hey, you don't need to be here anymore because the army was way over at Eastwatch. They're headed down to the Last Hearth. We need to rally with everyone else because Bran actually warged the Ravens. He saw the wall coming down. So presumably Bran's going to be the one to send the Ravens out. The wall has been breached. Everybody crap your pants and then get your ass up here. Next question, Sheep asks, is Jaime still commander of the Lannister armies or did he ride alone? And where the hell is Gendry? So as for Jaime, I definitely think that Jaime rode alone because the Lannisters are loyal to Cersei, to the crown. So, maybe a handful of people, but I think it's mostly just him. As for Gendry, I know it's kind of a Rhaegal situation after episode 6, because at the end of episode 6, after they're all escaping, when they get back to the wall and Daenerys is waiting for Jon, Rhaegal isn't anywhere to be found, so presumably he went back to Dragonstone, so that's my assumption for Gendry too, because Gendry is all about blacksmithing, they're making weapons, it would make sense that he's trying to help out back at Dragonstone work on that stuff. Next one, Savage asks, who becomes king if both Jon and Dany die? So I'm assuming in your question that they make it to the Iron Throne and then they both die and there is no child because their child, if they had one, would be the next king. What would probably happen next is in the name of sanity, they would call a great council and they would appoint a new king because, Gendry does have a small claim if he's a bastard and gets legitimized, but that'd be like putting another Robert on the throne. But remember that Varys is all about putting someone who's best for the realm on the throne, so it wouldn't necessarily have to be someone who's related by blood to Jon or Dany. Next question, Jordan asks, did anyone think that when Maester Aemon died, he was talking about Jon, Aegon? So you're talking about Egg. So the Egg that he was actually talking about was his brother. There's a series of novellas that George R. Martin has written called Tales of Dunk and Egg. Egg is the egg that Maester Aemon is talking about. His name was Aegon, but he had several other brothers. Maester Aemon was his older brother. Through circumstance, Maester Aemon became the next person in line for the throne, but he was studying to go to the Citadel, and he didn't want to start another Blackfyre rebellion, another Targaryen civil war. So he abdicated his right for the throne, took the black, and it passed to his brother Aegon. So that's who the egg is. So when he says, Egg, mother's calling you, he's talking about his brother Egg when they were little children, like before all this craziness happened. Next question, Fishplant says, Wilf Scolding was a really weird choice of actor to play Rhaegar Targaryen. I know a lot of people were talking about how he looked so close to Daenerys' other brother, and I think that was definitely on purpose. There were actually a lot of people that thought that that was Viserys, but you have to remember that they're related, so they would look alike. Rhaegar is just much taller, much broader soldiers. You have to imagine that he was a fighter, so Jon takes after him. So I think they're just trying to keep a little bit of continuity in their family. It's like they wanted the brothers to look alike. Next question, Sir Edgelord asks, aren't you a Blackfyre if you're a Targaryen bastard? So there are a lot of people that are still confused by this. So bastards are named by region and by who you're born to. Usually the father has naming rights. So if you're born in another region, then you can get another name. That's why Bran said Sand instead of Waters, which is what bastards are called when they're born in the Crown Lands. So the Blackfyres are actually an offshoot of the Targaryen family. They were made up of bastards, so that's why there's a little bit of confusion. But Daemon Blackfyre, first of his name, took that name because of the Blackfyre sword in this big struggle over the succession. So what happened is Aegon IV, like this big portly lurking guy, he had many, many bastards. He was sort of a Robert Baratheon of his day. He loved the ladies and he loved his bastards too. So he had a son who was next in line for the throne, but his other bastard he loved more, so he gave him the ancestral Targaryen blade, Blackfyre. That's the sword that we know Jon Snow now should be wielding because he's next in line for the throne. But what happened is a bunch of the bastards got together and formed the Blackfyres, and then they started fighting a war of succession. That turned into the Blackfyre Rebellion. Then they eventually lost, were exiled to Essos. They formed the Golden Company. So the really cool thing is if we're actually going to see Blackfyre show up on the TV show, the sword, it might show back up with the Golden Company. But I think the more likely scenario with the Golden Company on the TV show is that there'll be a couple Blackfyres, but we'll see Daario come back with them too. Next question, Stuart asks, I think that there were two Aegons in the book. It seems like the show is merging Aegon, young Griff, Targaryen, and Jon Snow. So actually, just to clarify that, there's a lot of confusion about this, about the fake Aegon. I don't think that that's what Jon Snow is meant to be on the TV show. There was a lot of confusion about who named Jon Aegon. Was that Lyanna all by herself, or did Rhaegar have that name in mind and tell her about it before he left to go to the Trident? The most likely scenario, and this is still a theory, but it's the best theory that I've seen, is that Lyanna wasn't really aware of what was going on with Rhaegar's other family, so she didn't know he already had a son named Aegon. And because Aegon the Conqueror was such this big rallying figure in the history of Westeros, that's why she picked that name. Because it was a name with a lot of meaning behind it, but also because she was not aware of family number one and what was going on with them. So another follow-up Aegon question, Patrick asks, considering if Jon's name is also Aegon in the books, do you think that he's going to be related to Dany's vision in the House of the Undying? So if you haven't read the books, Daenerys has a vision they didn't do on the TV show where she sees Rhaegar with a baby. The thing about that is that Daenerys has no idea what Elia Martell looks like, so she just assumes that it was Rhaegar's wife because she knows about her history because all the people that she's grown up with have told her about her family. So when she sees this woman with the new baby in Aegon, and he says his song will be a song of ice and fire, he's the prince who's promised, she might be seeing Lyanna and just not realize it because the woman had dark hair, but Elia Martell also had dark hair. So there's a little bit of confusion in the interpretation of the vision, but prophecies are mostly built on metaphors. Next question, Alisher asks, why didn't Littlefinger demand trial by combat? That is a good question. How come he didn't have any guards with him if he's such a powerful person? I think the idea is they just wanted to get rid of him. They're like, this is the end for him. So they just wrote that into the show. This has been happening to Littlefinger for the last couple of seasons. Like, why didn't he know Ramsay was such a bad person? The Littlefinger of the first couple of seasons, as well as the first couple of books, sounds like somebody who is amazing at sizing other people up and knowing all the chess pieces on the board and what's going on. The other example of that is the Tyrion character this season and all of his terrible plans. The reason why his plans have probably been terrible, because he should be really good at this, is because they wanted Lannisters to have some wins. They wanted Cersei to win a couple battles, and they wanted to make Jaime seem like a better battle commander so that he could become their battle commander in Season 8 up in the north, which is probably what's going to happen with him. But I'll do a separate Jaime video about that. Littlefinger is just a casualty of the TV show rushing plot along and needing to develop the Sansa character, so they really just threw him under that bus. So it's one of those situations whereby Dan and Dave are great at adapting George R. R. Martin, but when they have to originate Littlefinger content, like they have to write original story for Littlefinger, they fall down a little bit. So if you have any problem with the Littlefinger character the last couple of seasons, I would blame it on that. But thank you so much for submitting questions. These are always a ton of fun to do. Congratulations to the latest giveaway winner too, Mexa. Please private message me on the back end of my channel so I can get your contact details. My next bonus video will probably be an Aegon video, just to explain why it's so important that that's Jon's true name and who the other Aegons are. It gets a little confusing. But then I'll do some more character videos like what's going on with Tyrion. There's a whole lot of stuff we have to talk about, but just leave all your requests for bonus videos in the comments below. You can click here for my Season 8 predictions video, and you can click here for my finale video again. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody stay awesome. I'll see you guys tonight.